this year's first Kubrick poetry session, and we have a very special guest today. Dr. Verner Bickley is our guest, and I just want to take a moment to give a brief introduction. As you can see, Dr. Bickley's brought a series of books called Poems to Enjoy, and Dr. Bickley is a writer, publisher, and also an education and cultural administrator. And with his wife Gillian, they founded the independent publishing house Proverse Hong Kong, and have also founded the Proverse Prize for unpublished writing. And over the years, I've also bought some of those books that Proverse has published. And Dr. Bickley has written more than 20 textbooks, and correct me if I'm wrong along the way, more than 20 textbooks and books on different subjects, including education, language and culture, and language teaching. And he has extensive experience in curriculum development and curriculum reform. And he has also been an adjudicator at the Hong Kong Speech Festival since 1987, and also has extensive experience writing and presenting for television and radio. So we're very pleased to have him here joining us at Kubrick Poetry, Dr. Verner Bickley. Thanks for joining us. So the way it'll work today, we'll first have Dr. Bickley deliver a speech that he has prepared, and afterwards we'll open it up for some discussions or any questions you may have.
Well, we are only a small... We are only a small group, but that's not a problem. But it does remind me of many, many, many years ago when I was living and working in Singapore, that I was a member of a drama society, and we decided to put on a little play, and we dressed in costumes, and we made ourselves ready, we rehearsed and so on, and we sent out notices all over Singapore. We put notices in the newspapers, in the magazines, we had something said on the radio and so on. But only 3 people came. One of them was a very senior soldier. He was a general, and the general and his wife, and the general's assistant, his aide-de-camp. So just these 3 people. And the play is an extremely good play, 18th century, but a little bit bawdy, a little bit naughty in parts. And as we decided to carry on, so as we performed for these 3 people, we could see that the general wanted to laugh. But you could see also that his wife would turn to him and frown, so that she didn't want him to laugh at these very naughty bits of prose in the play. So anyway, we carried on, and at the end, the generals came up and said, "Thank you very much indeed," and so on, and he and his wife and his aide went off. And we never did find out why no more people came than did come. But anyway, that's got nothing to do with this afternoon. And I assume that those of you who are here are interested in poetry, and I would like to say a little bit about what a person attempting to write an anthology, a group of poems of different kinds together. And I'd like to focus on 5 volumes, my 5 published volumes, under the general title, Poems to Enjoy. We've only brought 1 to 3 this afternoon, but there are in fact 5 volumes in the series, beginning with a very simple poem and ending with the 5th book for senior students. So they've been compiled not only for schools, but for all persons interested, and I hope enchanted and delighted in poetry as a form of literature. So poetry is not just a piece of writing in which the words are arranged in separate lines, often ending in rhyme, and chosen for their sound and for the images and the ideas that they suggest. The best poetry is surely like a magic carpet that can take you into fascinating worlds, certainly those with which we are familiar, but also worlds of the imagination. Today there are many organizations that provide opportunities for people to listen to and to read and enjoy poetry. In Hong Kong, Kubrick is one of these. In Central, there's a group called Out Loud, which organizes sessions at the Hong Kong Fringe Club, in which poetry speakers are limited to sessions of 3 minutes each. These sessions, however, are not quite the same as the so-called competitive slam poetry sessions that first became popular in Chicago and are now conducted in many European countries. In my series of 5 books, Poems to Enjoy, Book 1 has a simple objective. It's intended to provide students at the primary 1 to primary 3 levels with the opportunity to listen to simple English presented in the form of verse. That is the primary aim. But after they have become used to poetic forms, there is also the possibility that the children can be encouraged to say some of the poems themselves and to act out some of the stories. Little children quite like to do that kind of thing if they are encouraged by the teacher. And of course in Hong Kong, if there is space in the classroom for them to be able to do it. To help the teacher, and of course the students, there are detailed teaching notes in these books, and there is an audio recording of each poem. So you can have the book, look at the notes, and you can also listen to the poems being read. Yes, please do. As an example, the teacher can narrate the poem entitled Timothy 2, which is on page 16 of the first book, except for the line, "I'll soon get you," which can be said for fun by the whole class. Timothy 2 once dropped his shoe in a great big tub that was full of glue. So he jumped in, saying, "I'll soon get you." But the shoe stuck fast, and Timothy too. So you can read that out, and you'll get the class to say it. They can be Timothy. Book 2 in this series extends the work done in the first 3 primary years, and for the 4th, 5th, and 6th years at the primary level provides additional poems that are suitable for reading aloud and that contain descriptions of different scenes, as well as telling interesting stories. These poems can be used as supplementary reading material, for they can be used for oral work, including the practice of stress and rhythm. In the Hong Kong Speech Festival, we often, when we're talking to the students after they have competed, we say it's very important that you stress the right words, and it's very important that you maintain rhythm that is appropriate to the poem. Of course, we say many other things as well. An example of the section in Book 2, entitled Pictures in Poetry, that's on page 111, is Christina Rossetti's poem, Is the Moon Tired? Is the Moon Tired? The teacher could introduce this by referring the students to Eliza Lee Follin's poem about the moon on page 14 of Book 1. It would be particularly interested today in reading this poem because we've just heard that the Chinese space vessel that landed on the moon has run into difficulty.
Yeah.
This was a great achievement that for the first time a Chinese spaceship had landed on the moon, and it's very unfortunate that there has been some problem. So any teacher reading these two poems, if he thinks the children can understand, can mention Hong Kong's and China's spaceship at the moon. Oh, look at the moon. She is shining up there. Oh, mother, she looks like a lamp in the air. Now that could be compared to, is the moon tired? Is the moon tired? She looks so pale within her misty veil. She scales the sky from east to west and takes no rest. Before the coming of the night, the moon shows papery white. Before the dawning of the day, she fades away. Well, poor moon. Stories about the moon are fashionable, as I've said at present, and it may be that the students' parents or their teachers have spoken about China's lunar probe, the Cheung A3, that landed successfully on the moon in December 2013, but has now run into a bit of a problem. So much for books 1 and 2. Book 3 of Poems to Enjoy takes us into the secondary school at the Form 1 and 2 levels. As mentioned in the section of the book written for teachers, each book contains a variety of poems of different degrees of difficulty to suit different ways of learning. There are poems to speak, particularly suitable for speaking. There are poems that can conjure up pictures in the mind. And there are poems that tell tales, which the students can use as the basis for writing their own stories in prose or verse on related themes. The section called Pictures in Poetry includes one of my own favorites, the translation of a Chinese poem called The Peddler of Spells. The Peddler of Spells. Does anybody know that poem?
No.
An old man selling charms in a cranny of the town wall. He writes out spells to bless the silkworm and spells to protect the corn. With the money he gets each day, he only buys wine. But he does not worry when his legs get wobbly, for he has a boy to lean on. I like that poem, that appeals to me, that. The drinking and the delight, there's always a boy to lean on if your legs are beginning to give way. In more traditional style, there's a poet called Walter de la Mare, late Walter de la Mare, and he offers a poem in what I regard as rich, rhyming couplets. And we're back to the moon again. Slowly, silently, now the moon walks the night in her silver shoon. This way and that she peers and sees silver fruit upon silver trees. One by one the casements catch her beams beneath the silvery thatch. Couched in his kennel like a log, with paws of silver sleeps the dog. From their shadowy coat the white breasts peep, off doves in a silver feathered sleep. A harvest mouse goes scampering by with silver claws and silver eye, and moveless fish in the water gleam by silver reeds in a silver stream. Well, as I've mentioned earlier, there are audio recordings in each of these 5 books that give examples of how 2 adult native speakers of English read the poems, often at the primary and secondary levels. These are only examples, so there is no need to copy or to ask the students to copy the readings. They are included to make the meanings of the poems clearer. They offer interpretations of the poems and examples of the use of stress, pause, variety of pitch, and run-on lines, and they give good guidance as to the pronunciation of words that might be familiar. By run-on lines, I mean in a poem, let's say, with in 5 parts, with there is no comma at the end of one line, so that's an indication that you should run on to the next line. If there is a